So
That's
yeah.
that's great to hear. Hey, Mamie.
Hello.
Hi.
Stuka Joe made it. Yay.
Yeah, still setting up. Can you hear me?
Hey, buddy.
Yes,
How you doing?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. Nice to see you guys,
Good to see you.
especially from the last time I saw you guys in B-17. You weren't doing so well.
Oh, that's cool. Listen, I'm going to mute myself for a minute, and let's just let a few people join, and then I'm going to rearrange my screen thingy. So you guys just
I'll post.
so, well, you know, since we have so many folks who like to, you know, post and make videos and play war games, I thought rather than all of us, because once or twice before we've kind of gone through what are we playing, what are we doing, and kind of the standard boring thing that everyone else does, I thought I might ask everyone a few questions about what they think about the state of the war game marketplace. And I don't know if you saw any of the comments in that original invite, but my first question to everybody was, you know, are there enough war games being designed and made? Who would like to take the answer, first answer?
I think the obvious answer, I mean, for me, is absolutely. I mean, my collection has grown exponentially over the last several years, and the quality is the best it's ever been. Some of the designers out there putting out just incredible designs and components. I know that me and Steve Arthur talk about how, you know, the golden age of wargaming is now. So that's kind of where we stand on that.
Right. And so, do you think there are too many war games available? Too much to choose?
No such thing.
No such thing. Excellent answer. What about you, Stuka? I'm just going across bottom right to left.
Okay. Well, the funny thing is the same designers in what was called the other golden age of wargaming in the 70s are still around. Most of them are still around. Berg, Herman, all those SPI guys. And I think there's a tendency now to make games that are playable in a shorter amount of time because everybody has commitments, and I think we see less monster games and more games that are playable in one sitting. Or so. But I think, yeah, I agree that the golden age is now with those old-time classic designers, you know, designing games with new game mechanics like card-driven games and stuff like that. So every once in a while we see a new way of expressing the same battle that everybody loves, like D-Day and Normandy. I think I agree, Tom. There's no such thing as not enough war games, and most of them tend to be good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Gunnar, did you want to chime in?
Oh yeah, thanks. That question is very difficult for me to answer because I'm not really a seasoned wargamer in that sense. I've just started playing war games. Well, I always was interested in war games, I guess, but just started playing them seriously the last few months, really, after stumbling across one of the channels here, Mamie's channels, actually. Then I realized that you can actually play war games being all by yourself, and you can play both sides in a sense that I haven't really thought of before. So that has sort of plunged me into that, and now my collection is growing exponentially. So I can see that there's for sure enough war games for my wallet, if I can put it like that. But what I think is difficult, to distinguish. I don't know how to say this in English. Well, the good ones from the not so good ones. That is kind of hard from the description. They all seem very similar. You have your regular counter, you have your way of attacking, and you figure out your bonus, and the defender does the same thing, and you roll, and then you sort of end up resolving that battle. So I think that is a tough nut, at least for a new wargamer, to really understand and see the differences just by reading a rulebook or by looking at the description.
That's why you have Kev.
Yeah, of course. These channels helps.
No pressure. No pressure, buddy.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point, and I'd like to talk a little bit more about how we choose games in a little while. I think that would be really interesting because we've got looking across the bottom of the screen now, and I look at all the people that are on here. We've got people who've been playing war games for, I'm going to say, a year or less, and not to throw anybody under the bus, but maybe even more than 20 years. So it'd be nice to kind of have all of us kind of chime in on that topic in a second too. So, Gesine, why don't you tell us a little bit about, what are your thoughts on, are there too many war games, not enough war games?
Okay, I'm going to be 42 next month, and I'm afraid there are too many war games for me to play in my lifetime. I mean, this is just when you just look at, I bought old stuff that has been out of print, games that are as old as I am, and I love them, and there is the new stuff coming out. But I think what Gunnar said is very important. You know, it's so difficult to really know if it's a good game or not, and this is why I believe we may be in the golden age of gaming in general, because you have the channels, you can watch people play, you get the reviews, you get the unboxing, you get whole playthroughs, you can kind of make a decision. Does this look like a game that I'm interested in? Does this look like a game that I would like to play? Do I even understand how the game works? Because sometimes you look at the channel and you kind of go, okay, from this video I can't tell what I'm supposed to be doing. Maybe this is not my kind of game, you know? So I think for me...
You've been watching my videos.
Of course I've been watching your videos. I mean, seriously. And I've been watching Mamie's, and I've been watching Stuka Joe's, and I've been watching so many other channels, and I think I've subscribed to 50 channels. But they give me the inspiration, you know, because that's how I got into wargaming.
Right.
Because when you read the description of a board game, it's very simple usually to understand, but to see a war game being played, you know, got me into thinking, hey, this is something that I would love to do as well. Because when you just open a box, you know, you have like your hexes, it looks pretty boring. You have teeny tiny chits, which at my age I can hardly read anymore. So you kind of go, do I really want to do this? And then you watch somebody and talk about the history as well of the era that they're playing, and then you kind of go, yeah, I want that too. So for new starters, I think now is a really good time.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. Okay, Jude. What do you think? That's interesting.
You talking to me?
Yes, mate.
Yeah. It's an exciting time. My perspective on this is a little, you know, I played war games many years ago as a teenager. Got away from it for a couple of decades from, you know, work and life, whatnot. And I've only come back into it in the last couple of years. And it's amazing to me the new innovative designs that are coming out, particularly geared for the solo player, and two-player games that are solo-friendly. It's just some really innovative stuff right now that just, I want to go back and revisit some of those old classics and maybe do up some videos on them. But it seems like there's something new and unique coming out every month, and you know, I can only spread myself so thin. So, yeah, I wouldn't want to say that there are too many games, just too many games for me to keep up with. I've got such a huge pile I'm backed up on right now; it's ridiculous.
Cool.
So,
Well, that's a good problem to have, though, right? So,
yeah,
Mr. Itinerant, what do you think, man? Too many games, not enough games. You're a minis player and a war gamer, so you're crazy and a PC gamer to some extent, right?
I'm a Renaissance man. No, I think there's plenty, because I don't know who said it, but there's enough for my wallet. I think that's a great way of saying it. I've kind of started to wonder if I'm really a war gamer, actually, because I'm kind of narrowing my interest down to like really tactical, like either ASL or ATS, Advanced Tobruk. Mm-hmm. I'm really like an SCS too, but so my and World War II. So I've tried a bunch of areas. So to me, there are plenty of games out there. You know, you got old school tactical coming out. I think there's even Mark in his Kickstarter referenced 2 more war games in Kickstarter.
Yes.
So to back. So to me, that's pretty good. And GMT and MMP both have what appears to be long list of games in the queue, and then there's all the other publishers that I just don't pay much attention to just because of time and energy and money and all that. But
right.
But I think there's plenty, and of course miniatures, it's the same way. Tons of rules come out all the time. So.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic that I'd love to touch on at some point. But minis and the rules and that whole marketplace is very different from the board gaming marketplace. I think it's a different approach to it. But anyway, that's a good observation. Maybe.
But the bottom line is that there's something out there for everybody. You know, in terms of the war game genre. I mean, there's great new stuff out there all the time for beginners who just, like we have here in this little chat, that are just kind of getting into it and want to explore it. And then there's stuff for the really truly sick and addicted like us, some of us older guys that continue to draw us in and make us want to continue to buy. And I know for me, I'm sure like everybody else, I can't buy everything. I can't play everything. So you really have to find out what you really like. Like the itinerant guy, they were talking about really getting into ASL and Advanced Tobruk, which are two systems I would never go into myself. But yet I'm going to throw myself at some of the monster war games that are coming out. So it's one of the great things about this overabundance of games that are being put out there is that there's really something out there for everybody. There's variety of designs, companies, eras, the different levels of conflict. I mean, you name it, you can basically find a game on it today.
Whoops.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Tom. There's something for everyone, and there are a lot of new games, a lot of innovative games from what it seems from my perspective as also a newcomer to the hobby. But there's also all the old games that you can go back and find used, and they're a lot of times very readily available. And I'm having fun exploring the games from the 70s right now, and I'm also keeping my eye out on what's new. And I guess the question of whether there's too many is whether it starts affecting the quality. If there's a tipping point and more bad games than good games, and I don't know enough to be able to make that judgment, but it certainly doesn't seem so.
Mm-hmm.
And also having the internet available and me to be able to cyberstalk all of you guys and read your ratings and comments on games helps me, find games that I wouldn't otherwise know about, and also help me decide whether I want to pick it up or not. So comment on your games.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Hey, AJ, I know you don't have a microphone, buddy, but did you want to chime in? We were just talking about, I'm not sure when you arrived, but about the number and extent of the wargame marketplace and whether there were, in parentheses, too many war games or not enough being published.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I'll give it a go. Fushigi, I think, already beat me to what I was going to say in regards to that question. Bottom line, are there too many? No, but what it does is makes it more challenging, like she said, to sift through that which is available and weed out the bad from the good, which ties in with why community is so important, because we obviously no one person can get every single game and play it and decide if it's good or not. Therefore, we rely on each other to help determine that. And what better time and era to do that than now with the technology that we have, such as what we're doing here, podcasts, anybody and everybody can now let their voice be heard, and that we only stand to benefit from that. So, are there too many games? No, but it makes it more challenging in the long run to weed out the bad from the good.
So how, and I don't know how much time everybody has got, but we'll just hang out till we have a lack of interest, right? Or do whatever we want to do. But so that really leads me to how do we choose games? I know there's a lot of great designers out there, and who was just saying about Dunnigan? I forget, but you know, Dunnigan's obviously a great designer, right? And he's been a track record forever, and Berg's had a track record forever. But Berg often can be such hit or miss titles that you really need a third opinion before you can make a decision. So how do you guys choose the games for yourself? And I know that we all use BGG and Concept World and video bloggers and writers and reviews. But when you look at a game, what's the first thing that you see that makes you go, oh, well, I got to get that game?
Well, for me, the first thing I look at is the rules. If they're online, I download the rules and I check them out, because one can get tempted to buy the first pretty-looking game that comes out, but then when you read the rules, you know, this is not for me. You know, I don't want to be rolling 10 die rolls for a supply for one turn. You know, so I look at the rules and I glance over the rules, and I can have a fair idea if I'm going to like it or not. So that's at least how I do the new purchases. The old purchases, I find myself going back to the old games now more than ever. I used to be an Avalon Hill guy when I was growing up, because I was caught with the thing about the mounted map boards. But now that I'm more mature, it's I don't care if it's a paper board, a paper map, and I'm now buying a lot of the old SPI games and having a blast with them.
Good stuff, Tom.
You know, I guess I'm more of a chicken. You know, because I'm gonna pretty much rely on designers that I know, game topics I know I'm gonna like. It's hard for me to risk the money on some unknowns, and I did really with the One by the Sword game that was put out last year by GMT. That, in my opinion, was just a disaster. And,
yes.
And I ended up turning around and selling that pretty much right away, and it was just another lesson in, you know, trying to reach out and go into not just a topic that is under-gamed, but a game designer who, you know, has a limited, you know, track record. So, you know, if it's Mark Simonich, you know, I'm going to buy it, because I know ahead of time what I'm getting in quality of design and GMT with components for the most part. Dan Holt, who doesn't have a huge number of games, but the games that he has put out have been games that I've really enjoyed playing. Joe Youst, who gets really criticized, you know, because of his rule books, but you know, the doggone game itself and the system to me is just tremendous. And so you could go on and on with these different designers that y'all, you know, I'm sure most of y'all know. But so I'm gonna be a little more safe, and I'm gonna go with you know, with the games and the topics that I know I like, and the designers that I know are going to put out a good product.
So you really choose from a genre first. So you're a big Normandy fan, for instance.
Yeah,
so if there's a Normandy game, you're probably going to have a look at it, but then you're going to filter it by designer, and go from there.
I think that's probably, you know, World War II in general, probably Civil War is second, kind of, but you know, really World War II. If it's a game on World War II, I'm going to look at it for sure.
Right. Now, Gunnar, now you're brand new to the equation, so you have thousands of games to choose from. How in the hell do you even have a handful of topics that you're specifically interested in before you start buying games? How does it work for you?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I was thinking about that while the other people here was talking, and I find that I often do it the opposite way than, was it Tom that said something last year? I'm sort of quite interested in history and certain areas. So, but instead of going to a certain area that I'm interested in and picking a game, I often find myself learning a lot or wanting to learn a lot more about that area when I play the game. For instance, the Napoleonic area, I really wasn't really too interesting to me. I didn't know much about it, other than this superficial thing you learn at school. But then I started to playing this Field Commander Napoleon, and that got me into reading this, big book of Napoleon. Well, skimmed it at least. so that's. I often find that games lead me into directions I would never be in if it wasn't for them. So I think that's great. The other thing I look at is footprint. It's very important to me. A five map game, I can't do it. It's impossible. I have to leave it up for days, and I have kids running around the house, so that's impossible.
Right. Well, you need to.
Yeah, and the third thing is it has to be beautiful. It's got to be beautiful.
It's got to be beautiful. Okay, so there's our first vote for beauty. I was waiting for it. Okay. So,
shiny. And as a bonus, if they don't have those squares with triangles and crosses for infantry, but real dudes, come on, what's the problem with that? I don't get that. I want dudes.
That's you read a couple of books and you'll get into it. You've got to got to have all that. We just had a new arrival, and I will come to you in a second, Mr. Knives Muzzle Paint Dude. Hang on just 1 second, okay? Callisto, do you want to? Gazine, I'm sorry. Do you want to answer the? I'm just reading name tags.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's basically the era that I look at first. If there is stuff going on, and then with regard to designers, that can be really. Most of them don't mean anything to me. I know Mr. Berg, and I see his games, and I like his games, but it's for me really era, and I don't really care about what the game looks like. So if it's got a mounted map or if it's a paper map, I don't care. I suppose you could give me something that looks like an old telephone book. If I find the topic interesting, if I find the era interesting, I'll play it. But I also always try to get a hold of the rules, and I download them before I buy the game, because I want to read them to see, am I going to invest $50, $60, $70, $80 into something that's going to take me 100 hours just to understand the rules, and then it takes days to set it up, and millions of counters. Because while I don't have a problem with footprint, I have plenty of room. I just don't have the time to spend months playing one battle. I mean, that is something where I have to say no.
It's because you're 42, right?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm running out of time here, guys.
Okay, Todd, aka itinerant hobbyist, man who lives by that name. I always think of you as itinerant, by the way. I never call you Todd.
Whichever.
Yeah.
All right, so I've had time to write down some stuff here because I wouldn't be able to remember it. I do want to say that I think my wife chose me because she said I got to have beautiful, and that's me. So, so I want dudes. I think Gunnar said I want dudes. They're like, okay, moving on. I go by topic first, so World War II. I definitely stick with that. And the rules have to be somewhat, I like the 8 to 10 page level. Now I know I'm looking at ASL, which blows that out, but that's like one game, right? So I'm kind of coming down. I'll take one tactical game or maybe two that are pretty heavy, but then the rest of them I want to be fairly small, which I think is why I'm like an SCS right now.
Right.
So topic rules, the enthusiasm of the players, but that's kind of got me into can get me into trouble. Like I know a couple people play OCS. I don't know if anyone here does that. And they really are excited about it, and you're to blame, Kevin. And but you're not the only one. But there's a lot of people very enthusiastic about that. But I kind of learned that I do not like supply in my games. So I'm kind of starting to look at that, just kind of some of the complications of the rules and exceptions and all that. So, and then the community. So like that's why I think ASL is appealing to me, is the community around it. It's very enthusiastic, and there's a lot. You can find people all over the world that play that game, which is pretty cool to me. I think that's pretty awesome. And then I like if the game tells a good story, and of course that, that can depend on each person, right? Like I think Kev, I think OCS tells a good story to you, but that doesn't really tell a good story to me. I like the closer tactical level. Although I have to say, and this is why I'm liking SCS, because I can get a strategic higher level with less rules overhead. Right. So like the Mighty Endeavor I'm playing, I'm super enjoying that.
Yeah,
and I'm starting to learn more about D-Day by playing it. Like we're learning where the towns are better. I picked up a book, D-Day by Anthony Beaver. So anyway, that's kind of some of the stuff I'm looking for in a game.
Cool. Mamie, let's hear from your wonderful self, and and also for the folks that don't know Mamie, I think everyone here does, except we got to cycle back to our muzzle point dude or dudette in a second. But you prefer to go by Mamie, but you have Fushigi TV as your
my kind
moniker.
of name. Yes.
Your nom de guerre, or whatever we should call it.
My name is Mamie, and you're welcome to call me either. I'm in the same boat as Gunnar, and really don't limit my choices based on the topic first. I seek classics, games that are well regarded, that have a lot of reviews out that I can kind of research. I also agree with Stuka Joe. I think it's important to take a look at the rules before making that decision. But mainly for me, I focus on one map games with a few number of pieces if possible, and a rule book that's within 10 pages or so maximum right now, and try to explore various topics, and try to also experiment with different mechanisms, mechanics, point-to-point, card-driven, hex encounter, and now I'm kind of categorizing games in my mind based on the scope and scale. So I've been playing a lot of strategic level games, but very simple ones, after having spent a lot of time on kind of the more operational scale, but of course they're all very, very simple introductory games, so I don't even know if they could be considered really, probably just introductory war games is what you'd call them. But then I'm thinking of trying out, tactical level games and trying to find something that maybe just introduces unit facing as a new concept instead of everything all at once with 20 charts and tables to roll on. So complexity, size, and an ability to try out and sample games from all different time periods.
Right. So, Mamie, I have a question for you, because one of the very first, the first game I saw you play was Strike Force 1, I think it was, right? Which has got 6 counters and a map that's 4 hexes by 12 hexes or something like that. How the hell did you find that game?
That was one of the games that was part of the care package from Victory Point Games.
Oh, okay. No. Well, then what was the one before that? What were you playing before then?
I started out trying to learn the rules for Fading Glory.
That's right. So how did you find that game?
Raving reviews and Marco's channel.
Okay.
Mainly.
Okay. Some reviews, right?
But so a lot of my purchasing decisions are based on what video reviews are out there, what written reviews are out there, and what kind of ratings it gets on board game, which is probably not a great place to go for. I don't know. It seems you don't have a lot of data for war games on Board Game Geek as you might in others, but I don't know of any other websites that provide that kind of rating system.
Right. No, that's true. And even though there's lots of issues with the rating system, it's a rating system, so it has something. So Derek, would you like to chime in, and then we'll give AJ a shot at it, and then we'll cycle back to Muzzle Paint if he or she is interested in sharing.
Yeah, sure. I think it's interesting that all you guys seem to have a specific system for what you play. I'm much more transient in my tastes. I'll float back and forth, whatever looks interesting to me at the time. When it comes to picking out what the next game I'm going to play is, usually it simply involves me standing in front of my shelf It's deciding what I'm in the mood for. Sometimes it's World War II, sometimes it's World War I or Napoleonic. It's just, I don't know. I'm really kind of a floater in that respect. Gosh, I love introductory games. I love games that I think will bring new wargamers into the hobby.
Right.
I think we need new wargamers desperately. But at the same time, I've got a couple of games with 6-foot-long maps that I'm just waiting to dive into. One thing I try to avoid, no offense to you ASL guys, but I try to avoid lifestyle games. I don't want to devote 100% of my playing time to one system.
Right.
I want to keep things broad. So favorite designers. I don't know. I'm liking Dan Verson these days, but the last thing of his I tried was a disaster for me.
Yeah.
I'm liking more stuff. Pretty transient in my taste.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting stuff. Oh, there we go. Is that the one that you were not enjoying so much? Okay, so let's give AJ a second. AJ, if you could briefly share with us how you choose your titles, and then I'm going to cross up the multiple.
Yeah, it seems like if a game also is well known by its acronym, I'll buy it. No, that's a joke, but it does seem like there's a lot of great games out there that do go by their acronyms: ASL, ATS, OCS, SCS, TCS, all the above.
Yep.
One thing I haven't heard mentioned, and maybe it's just me, but hey, I'm going to be honest here. The very first thing I notice is the cover art or the box art, and if it's junk, as far as the cover art goes, then that makes me second guess what's inside, and that's perhaps being trivial or superficial. And I don't solely base a purchase on the box art as such,
right.
But that's the first thing I notice. And then, of course, yeah, the reviews. Is it a reputable game company? I'm pretty much satisfied with virtually anything, say, for instance, MMP puts out. The designer, all that factors in. Another thing that factors in is the price, though, and this has prevented me from making certain purchases, and there's, in fact, a designer who shall go unmentioned. I'm a very big fan of his, and I like everything he's done, and he's got something on pre-order, and I'm not going to buy it because I just don't understand the jacked up price, and I almost find it insulting.
Yes.
I understand if there's a lot of stuff in it, but we're talking about paper and cardboard here, and why is that one game jacked up 300% more than it's probably worth, or another game of similar ilk? So that factors in as well.
Right, and AJ, that's a good point, and so I've had my little ranty sessions, 2 or 3, in fact, over one of the one of the distributors, the Worthington Games guys, and then I've also seen some things with MMP with some of their new titles and some of the pricing that they've had, and particularly when you look at it as being 50% or 70% higher than an equivalent game in the same system, but perhaps with 1 or 2 more sheets of counters and 1 or 2 more maps, you're seeing a 50% increase in the pre-order price, let alone the retail price. That really kind of rubs me the wrong way. So that's an important point. I've made some hard decisions as well recently, despite my desire to be involved in game systems or designers that I like or would like to like, based on price. And the whole Kickstarter thing, well, that's a whole other topic that perhaps we can touch on either some other time or later on. Okay, so we lost muzzle point, so I guess we don't have to worry about coming back to the poor person. He gave up on us. So, because I'm not a very good host. So, let's see. What was I going to ask next? Oh, so rules. When you're considering purchasing a game, you know the designer. I'm wondering now, does the designer really probably drives a lot of our decision making, because you know the type of rule book that you're going to get, right? You know if it's a Richard Berg game, depending on who the developer is, it's either going to be a disaster like Carthage, where it's almost impossible to play the game, but it's a fantastic game, or it's going to be Men of Iron and it's gloriously streamlined and fantastic. So how do you guys react to bad rule books? I have a very short temper with badly written rule books. How do you guys feel about them? And let's go backwards this time. Let's start with AJ. AJ, why don't you hit us up?
Oh shucks.
Put it on you. Now you've made your own game, right? So you've published a game.
I don't know if this is...
And I'll have to be fair here. I haven't played it or bought it yet. So
I don't know if this is the place for me to plug my game. And I'll be honest with you, Kev. I don't know that you would like it. You're old school hardcore gamer. You're a shark. You'd eat it up. So I don't know if.
But actually... I'm not giving you an opportunity to plug your game. I'm really just asking you because you've written rules and you've played a lot of games. So I'm curious about how you feel about the rule writing / rule consumption process. Yeah.
Well, how do I feel about it? I guess I'm pro rules that are easily comprehended, but that's not always the case, obviously. But even as say a poorly written rule book is, it's not all is lost. There's so many outlets to help figure out what's going on, i.e., Board Game Geek, etc. And there's just so many channels and outlets by which you can figure the thing out. Now, granted, not everybody has the extra time that might be needed to put into something that isn't written very clearly, and that might turn a lot of people off. But if I'm determined to learn a thing and I'm interested in the subject matter, I'll be willing to put in the extra effort to go outside of the rule book and grab what's needed.
Cool. Derek, what about you, mate? You coming off the back of a bad experience, so how do you feel about rule books that are not done well? And how do you deal with them? How do you deal with making the game work for you? Oh, let me unmute you. You're muted. Why are you muted?
Okay.
There we go.
All right. Yeah. I'll do whatever I have to do to muddle my way through a bad rule book. I've bought the game. I've invested in it. So I'm sure as hell going to play it. But I really have a visceral reaction to bad rule books, and I try to be understanding in that I know that game design and rule book writing ability are not exactly two skills that go hand in hand. But gosh darn it, if you're going to go to all the time and trouble to design and publish a game, make your rules understandable. I really key in on that, especially if I have to give a bad review. I'm going to hammer you on your rule book if it's lousy. I think bad rule books would be more to drive new wargamers away or turn people off to wargaming that might not otherwise have tried it. I'd like to see a lot more attention given to good rule book writing with these new designs coming out. For example, the Nimitz that I just panned not long ago, just the worst DVG rulebook I've ever read. And I can only assume it's because they didn't bother to put the time and effort needed to make the rulebook unambiguous and helpful. I have a really visceral reaction to bad rulebooks. So.
Thank you, Mamie.
You're skipping around.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm trying to work out how to. There's this way. Dang it! Once I touch one of the cameras, it turns off the voice activated camera. So if you start talking, I've got to click on you, and then of course when AJ was talking, there's nothing on the screen. So blah. I thought I'd just cycle through the pictures, and I didn't want to focus on you because you get all embarrassed.
AJ, what's your game? I would like to know what AJ's game is.
Oh yeah, so AJ, tell them what the name of your game is and give them the website link, dude. Just put it in the and put it on the chat.
The name of the game is Platoon Leader, and that would be. Now you caught me off guard here. Let me get back to you on that because I've got a number of links and things, and I need to give you the one that is most appropriate. So again, you caught me off guard with this whole thing, but I will supply that information at some point here. Cool. Also, real quick, how do you message people? I see people messaging each other. How does this happen?
Top left-hand side, there's a toolbar, and
right.
a blue box that says chat. If you click on that, it'll open a chat box.
Okay.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
All right. New member, Muzzle Paint.
Yes. Yeah. Now he said he's having technical issues, so please hang out, listen, watch, or not. It's also streaming. Actually, it's not streaming live on the web. There's a blank page on the web right now that you can look at.
All right.
Okay.
So
rule books.
Yes, rule books. Well, I tend to go for the games that are highly, highly recommended or that have been out long enough where there are a lot of kind of player aids, fan-made player aids to kind of help you learn the game. So, you know, those Dunnigan games from the 70s, the rule books are very short, they're very clear for me, they're very easy to get into. I don't have a lot of experience with the newer games, and I think it's really subjective how people learn the game, what they consider a good rule book, what's too redundant, what's not, you know, cross-referencing versus repeating things in every section. My, of course, best experience learning a game was with Red Winter, and so I would have that as kind of, you know, if you're wanting to write a good set of rules, I would recommend checking that out and trying to strive.
You're not biased at all. That's funny.
Had to do it.
And you know, but they are awesome rules. They are extremely well written, and the historical documentation for that game is the best I've ever read for any game ever. Just fantastic.
And
you know?
he's going to be on the next level with Operation Dauntless because he's gotten permission to really extend the amount of written material to include in the game, a whole separate book just for designer notes, etc. I think. I'm pretty certain.
That's very cool. Very cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. It's cool. Todd, and we're going to get to you, Muzzle Paint. Okay, Todd, hit it.
Hit it. Let's go. Yeah, I was gonna say, Mamie, that's not fair saying Red Winter's so well written. You had the designer giving you hints and stuff.
Dude, like he taught you from scratch, but hey, don't you know? It's fine. We'll work it out by ourselves.
All right. Anyway, golly, that's a tough one. So I'm gonna have to read these Red Winter stuff. I keep hearing good stuff about it, but I think the best rules written. I mean, one of my first war games I bought was Combat Commander by Chad Jensen. And I don't know what, those rules to me are just incredibly written and straightforward. You know what, that's the thing about rules. They're great for me, but they may not be great for you, right? I mean, so some people love that conversational style. I thought I did, but after going through some, and I don't really I think I like that more technical style. Maybe that's why ASL appeals to me.
Case system type of thing.
Yeah, you know, 1.2, it's ridiculous, 1.2, 0.8, 0.6, but I don't know, to me it just feels more natural it's a better way for me to learn rules on my own.
Right.
But I got to say, with everyone said here, I mean, the reason I'm into wargaming is because of Board Game Geek and YouTube, honestly, especially some of the more complicated ones. It makes it great to learn. I can't believe all the energy and effort people put into in their hobby and create all these fantastic, like ASL's got some. These guys have written books essentially that they give you for free, right? I mean, hours and hours of time. And so I really like that. I would say for me, Adam Starkweather is I like some of his rules and games, but it makes me nervous because he's got those great GTS games, and I'm just like, holy cow, $200. But man, he writes some pretty good rules in my opinion. So
sure.
So that's kind of what I look for.
Christine, what do you think about rule books? I've seen you get very frustrated with rule books that then also be very insightful as well.
Yeah, well, I don't know if it's really the rule books, but sometimes, I mean, the one thing that stands out is Dien Bien Pho, which I bought this from the 70s. It was an absolute nightmare. The rules were badly written. They put in everything that they could possibly think of, and then they added everything, you know, and oh, we could try this, and oh, let's have supply here, and let's have that there. And you can go, well, first of all, reduce it to what really needs to happen, and then please write it intelligibly, you know. I sometimes have to say that when I find rules that I find strange or that I don't like the rule book, but I still want to play the game, I just say, okay, I'm not going to pay attention to this part, or I'm just not going to use this particular rule, or, you know, this is too complicated, I'm just going to cut it down. Or I go to BGG. There are so many house rules that you can find. I mean, when you look at, you know, like Ancients, SPQR, you know, you can take the rules as they are, or you just go with a simplified version, whatever you really want. And I think it depends on what I want to get out of a game, and I want to get enjoyment first and foremost, because I've got enough stuff going on at work that takes all of my brain. I don't mind concentrating on the rules, but if the rules really are the only thing that I see when I'm playing, I don't have time to look at the board, I don't have time to enjoy the actual battle that I'm fighting, but I have to constantly flip between charts and look this and that up again. I'm like, no, I'm going to pick 5 to 10 rules that I really think are essential, and I'll just skip the rest.
Right. Good for you. Good for you. I've seen you do that with some of the Great Battles history stuff. It's cute, and it works, right? I mean, you know, in fact, that inspired me to do something. Yeah, to do something with OCS. I was sick and tired of some little aspect of the game, and I said, you know what, I'm just going to do it this way from now on. Yeah. If Cassine can do it with Great Battles of History, I'll do it with OCS. So, all right, let's meet our newest participant, who is called Muzzle Paint. That sounds scary. Hey, Muzzle Paint, do you have a real name in real life?
Yeah, my name's Scott. Is it coming through?
Scott,
all right, good. Yeah, I'm fortunate. I live outside of Baltimore, so I grew up here and around Avalon Hill. And so I've been playing Squad Leader. Well, I started with Squad Leader when I was about 14, and then when ASL came out, I started playing that. And did some play testing when I was in college, back when I had time, for some of the ASL stuff around the annual, 97 annual and stuff. Nowadays I play OCS, ASL, a lot of GMT stuff, Great Battles of History. I heard you guys talking about rule books and stuff.
Yeah, so our question for you is, when you're a seasoned gamer, so when you receive a rule book that's perhaps not up to par or whatever the case may be, how do you handle it, how do you manage it, and what are your expectations?
Well, that's almost a total turnoff for me. I'll give you an example. I play also role-playing games, and Traveler 5 came out. And that was about the worst rule book I've ever seen in my life. And given that it was supposed to be the sort of magnus opus of Traveler, and it just looked like somebody had taken their notes and hardbound it. And so now it sits on my shelf, and that's where it's going to stay. So I tend to not house rule stuff. I guess part of my feeling is if I put money into it, I have an expectation that it's going to have been published at a certain level.
Right.
ASL, you know, it went through a lot of changes over the years. There's been some, you know, with errata. I mean, errata was kind of the give and take. They didn't really reprint the rule book. You just had to deal with the errata. And that's good for me. But if as someone had just said recently, I expect the rules to be clear and well written and easy to digest. I mean, OCS to me is like almost the optimum style of writing. It's clear. It's got it numerated. But it also is, I don't know, 10, 15 years old at this point. So I think that shows that it's very, very polished. And so is FCS and TCS.
Sure. Thanks, Scott. Go. What are you drinking there? What sort of beer are you drinking?
Well, I saw you had a sip, so I had to dig out my own. I think it's some it's an ale, pale ale.
Oh, nice.
I think it's called, yeah.
This is only sparkling water. So.
Muddy waters, yes, sure. Yeah. Well, it's funny that I think it was Todd that mentioned Chad Jensen, because I find those rules difficult to get into. I try to wrap my head around fighting formations.
Oh
man.
Wow.
Yeah, I find it difficult. It's something with the way it's written. It's really not that drives me along. So I have slept a number of times with those rules. Falling asleep while trying to read them. So I find those difficult, but I love his designs. I really like Combat Commander, so it's not that. But the only thing I could add to what you guys have been saying is that this errata things really annoys me. I understand that it may be errata. I really understand that. But in the end, I end up with 2 rulebooks in my box, right? I have the normal rulebook, and then I have what is called now a living rulebook. They call it nowadays.
Yes.
Which is I have to print out everything again, and why don't at least they highlight? Some do, but some don't highlight the new stuff in the living rulebook, so I can judge for myself if I want to do that or not. So, and errata on counters, don't get me started. I can't fix that. That's terrible. That's terrible. So,
welcome to wargaming.
Yeah. What do you guys do? I mean, do you use markers on your counters? That's a no-no, right? You can't do that. So
I'm going to let Stuka Joe and Tom talk, and then I'm going to have I may say something. We'll see.
Okay, great.
Hey, Joe, go ahead, man.
Who's up? Me? Oh.
Yeah, go ahead, mate.
Sure. If you're following my channel, I'm doing Napoleon Against Europe, which the rulebook has not received any rave reviews.
No.
And I know it was translated by Charles Vasey, who is a very well-known gamer. So I think the problems were the rules in French. So because if you translate a bad set of rules, it's going to still be bad in whatever language it is. But the topic, I was so interested in the topic that I stuck with it, and I really like the game. I think the problem in that particular game is the redundancy, that you have a rule that touches upon 2 different aspects of the game, and you see it mentioned one thing in one section and not the other. And I've actually had to re-record the last 4 phases. I have it here at the top of my because I screwed up one rule. But that is an example of a game that for me would be close to perfection if it would have a good rule book. Now, going back to Derek, I know he gave this baby not very rave reviews, and I have this one set up next to do what I call an extended example of play. I find those useful because it's actually the game being played the correct way, and I push around the counters to see how the game gets played, and I'm doing those kind of videos because I could sit behind a camera and tell you if I like the game or not, but it's going to be a very subjective opinion based on my particular taste. But just pushing the counters around and playing a full turn, I think people would actually appreciate how the game is actually played, and you make up your own mind if it's for you or not. But bad rule books will drive me away. The only example I can think of, the most vivid one, was a Richard Berg game called Onward Christian Soldiers. I was very excited when it came out because I'm very interested in the topic about the Crusades. And then it had one rule that if a particular commander's force loses strength points to the effect that there is a lower-ranked commander of the same side that has more strength points than him, then you can't move that lower-ranked commander anywhere on the board until the first guy, the higher-ranked commander, has more strength points. And I'm going, what the hell is this? And it just turned me off completely. I can't imagine, 100 miles away in Aleppo, the guy's waiting. I got to wait till you get more troops so I can move mine now,
Yeah, right. That's crazy. Well, now Tom, I'm going to let Tom chime in here. Oh, did we lose Tom?
No, I'm here.
Oh, okay. You're. I don't have an image for you, but tell us about your experiences. Well, actually, so we'll try and keep it succinct because I know you could talk for days about the GOS system. But tell us about your learning of that game succinctly. so you can share a little bit there.
I didn't.
And there he goes. I knew he was going. I knew we were going to listen.
I keep bouncing in and out
Yeah.
of the chat for some reason, and I didn't catch most of what you said there, Kev, because you were breaking up.
Oh, okay. All I wanted to do was to get you to comment briefly on your learning experience with Goss versus, say, Won by the Sword. Is what I was trying to articulate.
Okay, well I guess I'll start by just saying that I'm probably a little different than what most of you guys have shared, in that I really enjoy the learning process of war games. For me, that's part of the enjoyment. I'm also a realist, and I understand that, getting a clean rule book is going to be a rare experience. With Won by the Sword, the rule book had a lot of problems. The components, basically the whole game needed to be replaced, kind of like Supreme Commander did when it came out. For me, the big difference that I expressed, on the interwebs was the difference in response by the game designer. When Supreme Commander came out with all the problems, including, problems in the rule book and the components, well, Dan Holt totally was available. Kevin, I think his name Kevin Bergen, was made available, and they totally responded to what everybody was saying, and they made good, and they didn't go and hide. Whereas the guy who designed Won by the Sword, he basically went off the web. He totally, in my opinion, abandoned his design by not making himself available to the criticisms about the rule book and the and the game components that came out.
Everybody thought his baby was ugly.
Yeah, that was just that really struck me wrong. It was just why I just gave up on the game pretty quickly and wasn't going to give it, the chance that that it may be deserved, but I wasn't going to give it that chance based on the designer's response. But with rule books, I like reading rule books. I take them with me. I'm kind of like you, Kev, and I think we've talked about that. We take rule books with us to work or to wherever we're going and sit and we read them. As soon as I get a new game, I immediately go and find the living rules if there is one. I immediately look for player aids and any other information I can get that will help me with learning the game, because other people have already done a lot of the work, and so you can just kind of grab onto their coattails and get up to speed as fast as possible. The Goss system is it's a rule book that it's not well laid out. It's dry, very few examples. It's black and white, and it's like reading a novel without pictures. But underneath that rule book, that not very well written and organized rule book, to me is a really, really great system. And I really enjoy playing it. And what I've kind of done is, this time around, I didn't so much do it when I was learning Walked on Rhine, but with this one, I've kind of created my own player aids. I've kind of walked through the main parts of the rule book and of the rules and rewritten it in a summary form, so that instead of having to go and dig through the rule book for a rule, I've kind of got it two rule books of 100 pages. I've condensed into about 10 pages so far that I can a summary that I can go to that, as opposed to going to the rule book and find the information I need, find the answer I need quickly to be able to keep the game moving along.
Gotcha.
That doesn't mean that I don't ever go into the rule book, because I do. And this game, the learning curve isn't so much in the complication or the difficulty, it's just in the time it takes to complete, in a learning mode, be able to complete the different phases. Like the administration phase that I just did, that I talked about on my G Plus account, was, it took me several hours to go through that administration phase, just because it was the first time I'd done it.
Got it.
You know, but in the future, that's going to be less and less. And already the combat phases are much quicker than they were the first time around. So
Right.
for me, I guess I'm a realist. I understand that rule books are going to have problems. They're going to have errata, and I just enjoy the process, so it just doesn't bother me so much as long as the designer supports his product and supports his design.
Gotcha. Well, listen, I know Todd wanted to ask a couple of questions of the group, so I'm going to let Todd grab the mic. Hit it.
Real quick, Tom, are you the one that's got the Normandy discussion community?
Yeah, that's me.
Oh, okay, all right. It's been fun to watch, and yeah, so I saw your post today about the administration supply and all that, and I was like, okay, that game's not for me, but it's good. It's fun. It's fun to watch you play.
Glad I could help.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it because that's a big game, right? That's an expensive one.
It is.
So,
It's a monster.
So I appreciate it. So I guess I have two questions, but I'll do the first one here because it's around rules. And I'll make my comment, which I guess is cheating. So miniature rules, when you play miniature games, it's like standard to house rule, to include and not include some of the rules as written. I mean, it's like if you play the rules as written, you're weird. I mean, to me that's so, and that's a standard thing in miniature rules. Whereas in board games, it seems a little less so. People aren't tweaking, like Combat Commander, like, oh, I'm going to do this and add this rule. That just doesn't happen as much. So I guess my question to all of you, and I think Justine said this about a game that she was playing, but how many of you either house rule, like to do house rules, or how many of you play the rules as written? So I'm kind of a play rules as written because my philosophy is the designer had an idea that they wanted to imply, and there's a reason they wrote the rule. Now maybe it's not a great rule, I don't know, but for the most part, I like to play rules as written because I feel like it was designed a certain way. And Kevin, I'll let you kind of guide the conversation the way you've been doing, asking people their opinions. Okay,
cool. Well, I tell you what, why don't I answer first, and then we'll kind of go and I'll try and keep it brief. I am a raw guy. I believe that the designer had an intent and that the rules are there for us to play in that way, that we want to play the game based on how the designer intended it to be played. But if I come across problems, then I'm the first guy to throw the baby out with the bathwater and okay, what do I do here? And I'll typically get online and see if someone else has had the problem, because it's always been the case that someone's had the problem well before me, particularly given I play quite a lot of old games as well as some new games. So I would say I'm more a raw guy than I am make it up as you go along, and that's another reason why I won't be playing minis. And so, Tom, why don't you go ahead?
I'm the same as you, Kevin. I prefer playing rules as written, and only go to the house rule when there's just something that's really bothering the heck out of me that I can't resolve with the rules as written. But rarely do I do the house rules. And I've actually do some miniature gaming at one con that I go to every year where I don't have to bring any minis because I can't paint and don't have any minis. But you play with this other guy's system that he designed and his miniatures. We have a great time. I couldn't tell you if we're playing the rules as written or whether we're or right. not, because he's the one directing what the rules are at the time. Right. But I will tell you, we have a great time playing,
some fun to that.
Playing his system. Yeah.
I think there can be some fun to that. Joe?
But I play as rules are written. I mean, that's when I'm reading the rule book, sometimes I'm nodding and I'm going, yes, I like this mechanic, and sometimes I wish it was different, but I'm not going to change it because it would be like playing a different game. But right. Now, when you play solitaire, you have a different kind of problem, because especially card-driven games where you have full knowledge of the hand of cards. And I've played a couple of card-driven games that I put a little house rule to myself that when I draw cards, I don't look at them until that side goes again the next turn. So that creates a little fog of war in my own mind, so I can play the game at least with a little bit more excitement and not knowing what the other side has.
Well, you can be senile like me and just not remember. What did I draw? I can't remember. This is perfect. This is a solo game. Okay, Gunnar. What about you?
I'm with Joe there. I thought I'm only a host rule when it makes sense in a solitary setting.
Sure.
I mean, so forgetting cards and stuff like that, and drawing cards, delaying drawing cards, and this kind of stuff. These are minor things, right? So.
Yeah.
But I still go. I used to think at least that I played as written, but then I started doing these videos, and these comments pops up. I mean, there's an error at 2 minutes 35 seconds. You can't do that, and aside from that, I go on the Geek if I can't resolve it. In fact, I have that problem now with this Iron and Oak game I'm trying to learn as well. There's a rule there. I don't understand these cards. What are the purpose of these cards? And I read the rule book like 3 times now, so I need to go on the Geek to find that out. I'm not going to start anything before I know this, right? So I think there's some kind of universal balance in the game, in the design, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting you brought up the miniatures because I think there are almost 2 different communities, the board gamers and miniatures. And I do miniature painting, hence the name Muzzle Paint. And I find one of the things about miniatures are they're not as interested as a whole in recreating a simulation of history. They're just sort of almost playing with history. I think of Fields of Glory, where you have Romans fighting Chinese and things to that nature. Then you look at ASL, where they're trying to, and OCS, where they're trying to very closely recreate the historical simulation and allow you to play through it from the position that the various combatants had and make changes there. So I think that's where you get into let's house rule this, let's house rule that, because we're not really in the first place trying to follow history. Whereas board gamers tend to be, no, it's got to be. I mean, I can't tell you the amount of rule arguments I've gotten in over ASL, and we've spent more time, 2 people sitting there with rule books flipping through it. And that's the whole game right there.
Yeah, and that then to me that's one of my problems, and we don't need to get into why we do or don't like ASL. That's the hardcore ASL player. If you're not studying that stuff all of the time, you're not playing correctly, and you're going to be beaten for it, physically and mentally and emotionally, because you're going to lose, and you're going to be berated, and you're going to look stupid when you're playing wrong. And I like the old squad leader, but I have a hard time with that system. But I hear. So, Cassine.
For me, the issue is the rules, as everybody has said, were invented and put in place to translate historical facts into a game. Otherwise, you can't play the game. It doesn't make sense. So the rules are there for a reason. I have experienced games like Nothing Gained But Glory, where the rules were very well written, but when you played it, it was so clunky. And maybe I also had really bad die rolls that one day when I was playing, and I was like, sorry, I mean, I cannot get any of my wings to move at all. You know, it's not possible. I can't change what they're supposed to be doing. They were, you know, charging or whatever they were doing, and my die rolling was so bad that I couldn't change what they were supposed to be doing. And then we went over this, you know, on the channel as well, and we kind of decided, yes, this is what it would have been like in the field way back when, but because it takes a long time to relay the message what the new wing has to do and where they need to go, so the rules basically show what happened at that time really well. But I was like, yeah, but then it's, you know, to me then I was like, yeah, that may be the case. So this is so realistic that I just didn't have any interest in it. I was like, yeah, if this means I have no control over the game and it's basically the game going away and doing its own thing, it's not a game, it's a simulation, that is too much for me. So I sold the game, you know. But then again, you have other games like SPQR or, you know, the Ancients, the Richard Berg titles, where you kind of go, this is really nice, but there may be things where I'm like, I don't understand, or I don't like the way the command system is structured, so I'll just transport it over from another game where I like it better. But of course, I believe rules should be followed, but maybe I'm too much of a role player and I'm too much of a GM where I'm like, sorry, I make a decision now, I rule, this is what I'm going to do now, because I also want the game to progress and I also want to enjoy myself.
Good stuff, good stuff. I'm just... Mamie, you're funny. What are you saying here? Go ahead, Mamie, now. You were being amusing. How did you know that I cleaned the pool today?
Ah, see?
I need to turn that webcam off.
It is. Okay, so I completely blanked. What are we talking about?
I have no idea. I forgot. You said the word margarita, and it's of course some sort of Pavlovian reflex. I mean, I got no idea what we're talking about now. So.
House ruling.
Oh, right. You can tell I was a bad student. Yeah, so I house rule all the time, unintentionally. So it's, you know, it's so hard not to make any errors, especially when playing solo, as been mentioned before, and especially embarrassing when it's all on video and you can't do anything about it after you upload that bit. But I learned so much about the mistakes I make, rewatching the videos, just from the comments I got, just to slowly, you know, try to learn from your own mistakes. Someone really nice person said that my mistakes are everyone's mistakes, and that we can all learn from my mistakes. That was very sweet. It was really heartfelt.
But never mind.
I mean, grappling with the rules is something we all, you know, are constantly dealing with, and part of the challenge and fun is doing that. And you know, you approach learning a war game like you might an area of study in school or something, and it's. You can experiment with different approaches. Kevin noticed that I went crazy and made a mind map of one of my games. But that was really fun, and I realized later on really inefficient, but very helpful. So it just depends on how much time you want to spend and how soon you want to start moving those counters and rolling that die.
You know, it's interesting that some games will let you do that, right? There's some games that you can intellectualize a lot about, and you can think and ponder on them and wonder about the mechanics and wonder about the history and wonder about how it relates to the history. And then there are other games that you just go, you know what, I just got to start moving some shit. Otherwise, I'm never going to get this game, right? I'm never going to work out how to play it. And I think Unconditional Surrender is one of those games where I was, you know, kind of wary of it because there's so many rules, and then there's 15 versions of the living rules out there and all these charts, and I printed all this stuff. I was like, man, this is impossible. Well, I came out with the little Unconditional Surrender case blue, and I read the rules real quickly and then just said, you know what, I'm just going to stop pushing counters. And that has helped me just now go, okay, I'm just going to set the main game up, and when I get to a point that I don't know something, I'm going to look at the rules, because otherwise, you're trying to read these rules right now. I'm trying to highlight them and mark them all out, and you know, it's too much. And I think by the time I finish them, I will have forgotten what I learned when I first started. So I'm just going to play the game. Anyway, I didn't mean to just stomp on your comment there, but thank you for sharing that. AJ.
I house rule a bit, but there are some things that I consider sacred ground, and I wholly abide by the book of the law when it comes to them, namely ASL and OCS. But there, you know, I think I have a bit of a mad scientist syndrome, and that when I read a rule book, I'm typically inspired by this or that, and want to see how that works in relation to something else from another system, and kind of mix and match, and I get lost doing that, and I forget there's even a game here that is its own entity that can be enjoyed, and I have a bit of a problem with that, but I also enjoy it. So.
Very cool, very cool. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing. Sounds like a therapy session, doesn't it? All right. Thanks for sharing that with us. So actually, I had just had a thought about something interesting, but I want to wait because Todd said he wanted to ask a couple of questions. So Todd, did you have another question you would like to ask?
Yes, so this is off the rule subject.
Sure.
And yes, I'm enjoying our therapy session very much. I wanted to ask about after action reports. I can't say AARs. I'll get in trouble for that. I'm curious about AARs. Obviously, some of us create them, but I'm curious what I'm always curious what people think of them. Either, yeah, do you prefer written or video?
Mm-hmm.
That's one way of asking it. And do you, or yeah, written or video? And what do you get from them? If you, I mean, or do you even really read them or pay attention to them? Because you know.
That's a great point. I'm so glad you asked. But isn't it also why you do it too?
Why do you why do you make them, or why do you?
Yeah, why do you make them? Like, why do you make them?
Well, you know, I started blogging because I started painting miniatures, and I kind of wanted to show some sort of record of what I was doing. And there's tons of forums and all that, but there wasn't really one that I wanted to spend a lot of time on. So I thought, well, I'll just post them on a blog and do that. And then on video too, just because I'm not a very good writer and not very fast, so I thought videos would be easier. But then it started going to games, and it was just fun explaining what happened in the game, and maybe it would help people learn the game. And now it's almost an addiction. So whenever I play, I almost look forward as much to doing the video or writing up an AAR.
Isn't that interesting? Yeah.
I mean, it's really a part of the game for me now. So, I'll even say, okay, I'm just going to try this ATS scenario. I'm just going to crank it out and play it as fast as I can. It doesn't matter. At the end of turn one, I'm like, oh, I want to write that I did this with that tank, and that's like, oh my gosh, dude. So
that's awesome.
And it's not that I want to hear myself talk, because I kind of do. That's why I do the video, so I can watch myself. But that's the therapy session. I'm done.
Nice job, nice job. AJ, you want to jump in, buddy?
Yeah, I think I need to do more when it comes to AARs or after action reports. I tend to be a little lax with those. I think some of them can get overwhelming. I don't know if anybody realizes this, but you only have so much time to read and look at stuff, and some of these people are posting like 20 and 30 after action reports of a single scenario. But I just drew a blank. As far as after action reports go, I think that also reflects a person's ability to locate an ongoing narrative within the game, i.e. a story, and a person can't help but get caught up in that and want to relate that to an audience, and there's also that needs to be taken into account.
Sure. Amy?
Yes, so I've not really done any after action reports. I think I prefer video, and definitely the kind of playthrough videos that Stuka Joe, Late Night Gamer do, where I can follow along and maybe learn something about just wargaming in general, and through the eyes of someone who's experienced, or see how a game is played at the same time and judge whether that's something that I would want to get into or that I would be even able to get into. And just reading the narrative of an after action report doesn't really give me a sense of the game itself and how that might be well suited for me or not. But the stories that generates is interesting, and that's where I turn to the after action reports, especially the ones with the pictures and the drawings on the pictures and the maps, and to show you the movement and what happened. But yeah, I definitely do the very uber detailed playthrough videos that take forever to watch. I'm still amazed anyone follows along. But there are this core group that also help me learn the game, learn the rules better, learn to play it better. So that's why I continue to do it, and I also enjoy watching them as well. And they're always there. I could always go back, or if I'm interested in a specific game, it's great to be able to just search it and find that there's a video, and if I'm free on a Sunday, just have it on, autoplay while I'm doing something else.
Very cool. That's very cool. Yeah, it's interesting how people consume what we produce and what it does for them. I see different sub-genres of bloggers on this group here. There's folks that, like AJ, who sit and talk about games and about the history and the things that went on, and then there's guys like Todd that'll do video playthroughs and educationals, and then maybe you do kind of a blend of playthrough and self-learning, expose type things as you kind of go through your experiences, and then Stuka Joe does these amazingly cinematic experiences. It's just am I going to watch Netflix or Stuka Joe? What am I going what am I doing, right? So I love that, right? It's amazing when a game will these stupid games with the piece of cardboard and map get you to be so creative. It's fantastic. So I jumped in. Be quiet. Kissing.
I read them. I don't think I would sit down and necessarily write them, because typing is what I do most of the day. If I was going to do something like an after action report, I would probably do it as a video log, because I just don't have the patience to sit down and write prose. I used to have a blog, but now these days I want to do it quickly, upload it. But I do read them, and I'm with Mamie. I love the ones where you have pictures where people actually describe, okay, so this was the situation, rather than just prose. So if it's got images, then I like it very much. Having said this, there are plenty of people out there who write great prose, where you go into those AARs and kind of feel like you're there, but I don't think I would ever invest the time.
Right.
I have to say no.
Right.
Wouldn't do that.
What about you, Gunnar? What about you, Gunnar?
Sorry there, I was a little bit confused with your excellent pronunciation of my name.
No, that's sorry, I was also leaning on my chin as I was talking.
No worries. I'm just kidding. Well, I don't do AR, obviously. I do these playthrough videos. I seldom read them, though. I must admit that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do watch a lot of videos on YouTube, and also for ARs, particularly ones from the games that I'm really interested in. And games that I know, actually, to see what other people think about that game that I know or like or dislike.
Right.
So that's like you're doing now with Unconditional Surrender. I'm really, your big Unconditional Surrender playthrough, I'm counting on you having some ARs there to show situations and stuff.
Yeah, well, we'll see, man. I may not get very far with that, but we'll see. We'll set it up.
Particularly on the political systems and how the counters, that is going to be very interesting to follow. Okay. So no pressure there.
Yeah, thanks for that, buddy. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure. But as long as it has a good narrative, that's a good narrative is what it is.
Yeah, well, so I'm a big fan of the narrative. I must admit, sometimes and it never really struck me. Well, actually, I guess it kind of did. But Alexander the Great Battles of History was the first game where I just had this image of all these guys running with shields and swords and spears, and I just couldn't help but just start writing about what happened in that battle and the guys and the things they did, and rationalizing and thinking through the die rolls and what would that really mean in terms of action. And then of course I played Mark Walker's War and lock and load stuff, and it was it was all over there, and I was making stop motion videos and going crazy, all very primitive with Microsoft Movie, but nevertheless it was very engaging. But anyway, I'm crapping on. Here we go, Joe. Carry on. Pick up the pace, Joe. Help us get back on track and stop me from talking.
Sure, Kev. Listen, I don't do AARs. I don't do after action reports. The reason I got into this whole thing was because I was becoming a game collector. And I said, hey, games are not to be collected, they're to be played. And I saw other people like yourself, like Marco, talking about games. So I said, hey, let's play one game and film it. And actually, the first game I played, I did a complete playthrough. It's Lion of Ethiopia. It's a hex and counter game, command magazine, very simple, movement, combat phase. And it took the whole thing 2 hours and 17 minutes. And I'm still looking for ways. One of my goals is to be able to play a game and for it to be a blend between a playthrough and an after-action report, so that you can see the positions of the units at the beginning of the movement phase, then that blends in with the position at the end of the movement phase. You see the combat's result, and you see the whole story developing, and you can see the whole thing in 2 hours or less. I mean, because I mean, let's face it, people can't be, investing a lot of time on this, and that's what I'm aiming for, to be able to get in the near future with all these videos and all this editing and all this stuff. I mean, the whole video process is a hobby in itself, actually, and I've been learning this as I have gone video through video. So
right. Well, it is a complex exercise to capture the content, get it onto the PC, format it, structure it, make the edits that you want to make. If you really want to, particularly the type of stuff that you do, make the edits that are required and things like that. It's a lot of work. So, Tom, now you kind of post as you go along, comments and thoughts. So I don't think I've seen you do AARs per se, right?
Yeah, I tend to post as I go. To me, it's part of the storytelling. I'm not technically savvy enough to do video. I enjoy writing, and for me being, a lot of the stuff that I'm writing about, I'm solo gaming. I don't do too much of the reporting on face-to-face or vassal gaming, but so to me, it's a way to share the game that I'm playing and the stories within the game. And really to record it, through photographs, and so to me, it's part of playing the game, and I, from as far as what I enjoy watching or reading, I both. The videos to me are harder to access sometimes because it's easier. It's easier for me to just sit and read something. If I'm watching a video, that may intrude on others that are in the room with me. But I do enjoy the videos when I've been able to look at yours. Some of Joe's I've been able to look at, and for me, I tend to be more attracted to the videos that are actually teaching the game,
sure,
showing how to play it and showing the mechanics. Because that helps me to learn. Yeah. So I tend to go towards those videos that are more learning or teaching, right, as opposed to just being a session report.
Right. It's interesting that I talk about video AARs and written AARs. I'm always looking for different ways to experiment with the content that we create. Because really we're content creators, or we are content creators, but we're content capturers. We capture the story of the game, even if it's the mechanics of the game, right? We're capturing these things that occur based on the rules and our interaction with the game. And trying to translate that and the narrative that is arising as you're playing is really, I find, that's the most fun for me. Sometimes I'll lay in bed and go, after a long game session, or well, this is what happened, and how do I say that, or I wonder if I could blend, video and pictures together and it's in a different way. Are there things I could use that would help the game be more, consumable, so the story comes out? Because sometimes I know I put stuff out there, and only I understand what it is that I did. It's not, I'm not doing it for anybody else. A lot of the time it's just, here's what happened, and I know what happened, but you may not understand at all what happened with the game, because you're like, well, I have no idea how to play OCS from those 40 videos. They sucked. But I had an awesome time doing that, right? Getting the story out in different ways. Anyway, Todd, did you have something else to ask? Another question?
Yeah. Well, I don't have another question, but I find it very interesting that and I don't remember who said it, but a few of you said you don't do AARs. But to me, it's interesting. I think we're kind of defining AAR a certain way, whereas I feel like I don't know if all of us on here, but have done AAR. So what Mamie's doing to me and what Stuka Joe, those are all AARs as well, I guess. Right. Not the official, whatever the official AAR is, but to me, even just sitting there watching someone play it for 2 hours to me is an after-action report, even if it's a playthrough. So it's kind of interesting the definition that we all kind of come to the table with is a little different. And so I mean, I think Stuka, did you do the Guadalajara ones?
I did 5 turns of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me that was an AAR. I don't know if you would have considered that, but that really interested me in picking that up sometime. So so I guess that, and the thing that a couple people I wanted to mention, there's a guy named Vassaling with Stu, or Vassal with Stu, so it's ASL. This guy pulls out maps from Google and historic maps, and does this whole history thing and shows where it takes place and talks about the divisions. It kind of goes from the strategic down to the level, then he plays through the game.
Very cool.
Kind of snapping it through in Vassal, the log. This is incredible. And then there's another guy that does OCS comic book style. I don't know if you've seen that on blogging. He makes comic strips of the move. Yeah, it's amazing. So some pretty amazing stuff.
He was doing TCS, wasn't he? Is that guy?
Yeah, it's TCS.
Yeah, that was amazing. He seems to only do 1 or 2 turns and then moves on to another game.
Well, how could you do it consistently?
No, I know, but I was really excited. I was really enjoying that stuff. I was like, what happened? Don't stop.
Yeah, what happened to Captain Steiner?
Yeah, anyway. Exactly. Yeah, that was great artwork that guy had.
Anyway, I don't have any more questions. That was good. I appreciate all the answers. Those are really good.
No problem. Well,
good perspective.
I like to add the fact that I feel that most of us spend a lot of our time playing solo, and that has, I think, a lot to do with the fact that we feel this urge to want to share our experiences and what's going on with our gaming and what we're dealing with, and whether that's written form or video form, it doesn't really matter. It's just that you want to share with the community, with others who are interested in what you're doing, and maybe get some feedback.
Yes, exactly, and it's funny that when I do play face to face with the guys now, they will end a turn and they kind of stop, look at me, roll their eyes, and go, "Well, you're going to take your picture now," because they know that I want to take pictures of all the games I play and kind of keep my.
This is Kev at the con.
Yeah. Yeah, I did take a lot of pictures. Not as much this year. I was pretty hardcore on that one game. So, yeah, but anyway, all right. Well, I had some other questions, but I know that we've kind of been at it for 2 hours. I don't know if you guys want to keep chatting or not, but I'm happy to do that or sign off, wrap up, whatever you want to do.
I'm good for time. I can keep going. I say we keep going till there's one left.
Okay, and I'll just sit, I'll hold on to the mic. No, don't stop the blog. So designers. No, I haven't. Here's a question I have that came up because of Muzzle Paint's comment. Old games have a sort of reverence to them that sometimes is overblown and sometimes we have underappreciated games that we look back and go, oh, that was a great game, but no one ever played it, or oh, that was a great game, but really it was crap, right? I mean, or it's crap relative to today's games. And where do you guys fit on the spectrum of, do you want to pull out that Avalon Hill game and play it just because it's an old Avalon Hill game, or are you pulling them out because they're really good? How do you know they're really good? Ooh.
Well, as to old games, I really like old games. They have a big advantage over new games in one aspect: is all the errata is already out.
Yeah.
Well, you have that big advantage, and you know if it's a good game because you go to Board Game Geek and you have a lot of people putting posts for it, so you go, hey, this must be a good game. So, and actually, I've done videos of old games like the Plot to Assassinate Hitler. That was, by its standard of the day, it was a terrible game. It was like one of the lowest rated games for SPI when it came out. And I had a blast playing it. I liked it so much I did a new map and counters for it. And I was hoping, some company was going to republish it, but that never happened. But that's an example of an old game that has, I think people understand it now. I think in the 70s, if it didn't have a zone of control and it was different from the mainstream games, everybody would shun that game. Now we're more open-minded and we can appreciate those games. So I really I really appreciate the old games. I was looking at Miami's videos on World War I. You look at that 3-colored map, and it looks so elegant. You know, there is an elegance to that map, and those counters that SPI made, they never age at all. When compared to the Avalon Hill games that I have now, they're all faded, and the SPI games, the counters look like brand new. So there's a thing to be said about old war games that they're very special in a way.
Yeah, they are. It's interesting too that sometimes so look at Panzer Gruppe Guderian, the SPI title. So that was a very popular game, and it was very innovative in its time. But when you look at that game, and the rules are still clean and they're good today, but when you look at that game, say, and compare it to a Victory Denied, and you go, okay, if I was going to go play one or the other, I would most certainly go play a Victory Denied, because the Panzergruppe Guderian game, if you're like the hardcore Grognard dude or whatever, however you pronounce that word, Grognard, if you're that guy, you've got that system down, and you crank through your opponent, and it's not much of a game really. And I've experienced that. I've had my ass kicked in that game several times by people who really deeply understand it, and then they kind of go, okay, you done now? Can we move on? You've had your fun with this classic. And it really wasn't a historical experience, and it really wasn't anything else other than I got to play the game, right? Whereas I played with Cassine, and I really enjoyed it because we were both novices and we didn't really know the system. And I don't know what I'm trying to say there, but I felt like it was a classic that wasn't that good, but I appreciate the history that's tied to it, the history of the gaming industry that's tied to it. Yeah.
I actually love that game, and I love it to this day. And why? Because first of all, we played it together. That was the only war game I ever played face-to-face with somebody on Vassal, not sending stuff out, but actually playing at the same time, simultaneously. But also, I like its clarity and elegance, because the rules are, perfectly written.
Yes.
And I would agree with you that if you really know the game, you can just march just through it, and it may be quite boring to play against somebody who's never played it if you're very experienced. But it's just such an elegant game.
Yes.
Where you kind of go, yeah, it will stand the test of time. If somebody said, oh, I want to play a war game with you, what would you recommend? I would pull out this one.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know, though. That's interesting. Yeah.
Because it's easy to teach as well. When I want to show them a beautiful war game, I would take out Red Winter, simply because that's a beautiful map, that's a beautiful design, and it's also it's got everything that you want on the map. But really, this is what wargaming is about. You have your hexes, you have your counters, off you go. I would choose Panzergruppe Guderian.
Nice. Others? We're kind of bouncing around, so feel free to jump in.
I think there's people who either hate those old designs, like visually, the graphics, or love them still. I have gotten feedback on the SPI World War I game that either the map was butt ugly, or that it's just highly functional and elegant. And I have to agree with Joe, and I kind of like the aesthetics of those older games. They're not as beautiful or gorgeous as the maps that we have today. They're definitely very playable and easy to decipher. There's no question, ambiguity about the terrain and what the hexes represent. And it's nice to not have that extra obstacle to have to deal with when you're trying to, learn something new.
Gotcha.
And I'm gonna kind of come in on the other side on this, and that I've really turned my game collection over the last 5 years, I guess now, since I discovered Board Game Geek, using the secondary market especially, and so like Longest Day, which I loved. The Longest Day, it was my favorite game forever. Played it more than probably any other game, repetitively for several years with a group up in Fort Worth, and I sold it. I had Highway to the Right, the old SPI game, Love to play that. Usually we just play it solo for, as long as I, felt like playing it. Again, I sold that, and in selling it, I turned around and used that money to buy Atlantic Wall, to buy the newer edition of Highway to the Right. For me, it's just that I have a limited amount of time to play, and so I want to play. For me, I want to play the newer versions of games or the later titles. I've played a lot of the older stuff through the years, and so for me, I'm kind of done with that. I'm ready to move on to something different. And so I still have old games, but for the most part, those games tend to sit on the shelf, and the newer games are the ones that make it to the table.
If I may say something about, I'm playing now games on the perspective of videoing them. It's funny because when I started, I said I'm going to video games so that I play the games that I have. Now I'm thinking, let's play a game that I can do a good video on. And the reason is, now we have games that have beautiful maps and tons of counters, and then you have where the action is, where it matters the most. You have a huge pile of counters. You can't see the map. So there are games that are more like TV friendly, like it's like it's like the sport of hockey. It's a great sport. I've seen hockey at the arena, and it's a great sport. But on TV, it doesn't get appreciated, and I think it's the same thing for war games. So now when I look at a war game, and I'm gonna talk about the great battles of history, I want to make a video on that game, but I know that those cohesion markers are going to be all over the place, right? And you're going to have cohesion markers, the big four on top of the goals, and it's from the video standpoint, who's going to enjoy that? So I'm looking for ways to see if there's a way to make the game more TV friendly, because otherwise you're going to see just a 4, a 5, and a 6 attacking a 6, a 2, and a 4 on the other side.
You'll have to put them underneath or behind or something like that. You'll work something out. You're creative.
Yeah, I'll find something.
Gunnar, did you want to say something, my friend?
Well, it's interesting what Joe said about TV-friendly games. I think this video blog or playthroughs that I do is sort of a solitary gamer's comfort. So I get to play with other people in a sense. So I think that's interesting. But also that what Joe said leads me on to this with equipment, because if you have a shitty camera, to put it like that, then the game will not look pretty, whatever you do. So that's sort of what I'm trying to do now, is to up my equipment a little bit better so that I can actually show off a game in a much better way than with a bad camera setup. Of course, that costs money, but I mean, that's a hobby in itself, I guess.
Well, so let me ask you just briefly on that there. When you say better camera, do you use a camcorder right now, or do you use a phone, or?
I actually have one of these Micro Four Thirds mirrorless cameras. It's on DSLR basically, but in a smaller format. Okay. With exchangeable lens system. So it's a little bit, but it has a bigger sensor than camcorders. So I mean, my nick is the late night gamer, hence not very much light. So I need to capture whatever light there is. So camcorders tends to not do it for me.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of my camcorder. I haven't used it in ages. I just use my phone. I just use my.
Yeah, that's kind of annoying. I spent all this money on this camera, and people are doing excellent quality videos with their phones. I think it was Joe that had an iPhone 6 now. He showed some incredible shots with some 60 hertz frame rates, or whatever the technical term for that is. But that was amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, there's some good stuff with the devices, but.
The thing about the shooting video, I have a couple of videos on how to shoot videos. Even on the B17 series, I made one video how I filmed the one chapter. The great thing about the iPhone or any camera on a cell phone is that the monitor tends to be bigger than your camcorder. So I can actually play the game while watching it through the monitor, and I know it's going to come out on the screen. And lately, the only problem I had was transferring the clips of the iPhone camera to an editing program, and it would crash every time because most editing programs wouldn't accept the MOV format. But now and this is a free announcement, Power Director 13. I had the trial version for 30 days and I purchased it. It works beautifully. It doesn't crash. And what I do, if you see my videos, in a typical half-hour video, I can have 300 clips. And you're going to say, man, that's crazy. Well, not if you can transfer the whole 300 clips at once into the editing program. And that's what I can do with the Power Director 13. So it's becoming a lot easier with time. And I'm a big fan of the multi-clip video that gives you the sensation of a lot of camera angles at the same time. So I think that, as I said before, the shooting of video, the videoing of the games is a whole hobby in itself. And you could probably do a blog or a conversation like this just on technical aspects.
Yeah, we should do that actually. Those of us that are interested in the video and recording side of it, because I'm always really keen to learn how folks are doing things and what tools they're using. That'd be awesome. Yeah. Well, what do we think? I think. What did I have here? What are my other questions that I had written? Oh, here's a good one. So, mistakes in games. When you're playing a game, I know that depending on how long it is, will determine how far back I'll rewind, which is another side benefit of being a blogger, is that you can rewind, right? Because you just go back to the video and look at where all the pieces were, and I can take back my turns, right? But how do you handle mistakes and errors in games? Sometimes they are material, other times they're not. What do you do, and specifically, what do you do with the material mistakes? How do you handle them?
I would rewind because it really annoys me, because then you never know what the outcome would have been if you played it correctly, and it's almost like cheating. It's even worse than cheating because you know you've made a mistake, you know.
Right.
I remember I reset the Battle of Bibracte, I think, 10 times because something was always wrong. And I'm like, no, it has to be absolutely right. It has to be
that's
right.
Funny.
I'm very obsessed with not making mistakes, you know. So yeah, I would rewind.
Gotcha, Todd. Hang on one sec.
Hello, are you there? All right, so I'm not fast on the draw there.
Cool.
I would probably not go back very far if I'd made a mistake, but if I make something and I realize it right away, I'll change it. Like if it's something I like, oh yeah, I should have moved that, and I would have moved it. Sometimes when you're solo playing, since you're thinking through both, you know, there's a lot you're thinking about. You kind of forget to maybe do something, or and I definitely go back to that. But I don't think I ever even catch a mistake if it's too far back. I'm already moving on. I guess I'm kind of like Kev. I'm a little senile or something. So, not that you're senile, Kev. You said you were, so I would never say you were. You said it.
Of course not. No. Well, is it so the downside sometimes is though you'll get some guy who'll come and watch your video 6 months after you've posted it and go, oh, dude, you just totally screwed that up, man. That's wrong. And then you're like, oh no, I hate that. I hate those guys. Can't you watch it when I put it up, dude? Come on. What's wrong with you?
You know, people think that because I did a video on a game, I'm suddenly an expert on the game.
Oh,
no,
yeah.
I'm not. It's and many of the times the first time I play the game. And what happened to me, for example, in this video, I'm going to get out a Napoleon Against Europe video now, which I have to redo the half of a year because I crossed a river that I didn't see. You see, the rivers in the borders of the spaces there are so thinly done that I didn't see it was a river until I was about to release the video and said, hey, Napoleon's been on supply for a whole half a year there. So I had to redo like a half an hour of video, play it back. But that happens. People make a post, 6 months later, hey, you couldn't do this. I said, well, sorry about it. Can't do anything about it.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little too late there. So maybe you're the master of the redo. You'll play the first turn 7 times. We've seen you do that because you got to have it right for everybody. So
I was a lot more picky about it in the beginning, but
Yeah.
after a while, you just start pulling your hair out. You redo a turn 3 times. You hit upload, it's processing. While it's processing, you rewatch the video, and you notice something 2 turns ago. And sometimes it just depends on the gravity, the how bad the error is, and I just make a point. I will make mistakes. Not only with the rules, but I'll make stupid choices too, and that's just part of the deal. I'm just learning, and so I really try to keep a list in the description boxes. I'm like a broken record because I don't know when people are going to be popping into my channel, what video they're going to be happening to watch. So I have to make sure they know that you can't learn from these videos, but have fun watching. And with my World War I videos, every time after I hit upload, after it's been up for a day or 2, I'll rewatch it and notice something. I always notice something, and when people comment on videos that I posted months and months ago, I'll add it to the list. That's how I deal with it.
Very, very cool. All right, hey AJ. So when you're playing, mate, what's your rollback provisioning like?
Oh, I suppose I'm much like Fushigi in that if it's within reason, especially starting a game, I'll restart it as many times as it takes to get it right, because I'm pretty much a stickler with that. And I'll play a game pretty far and rewind it all the way to the beginning within reason if I have to. But
right.
I don't know. I guess. Again, it just depends on how far along you've gotten in the game, and if you're able to, like I said, start it over. If not, then rewind as much as you can. If there's something specifically that is minor that can be offset by allowing the other side, if you will, a similar benefit, then that's also another option I try to incorporate.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. So maybe. What are you playing? So you're playing World War I right now. What's coming up after that?
A little-known game called Campaign for Guadalcanal. Henderson Field did the land portion, Henderson Field, which was a gift, and then I have a couple of games. I think after that, Beta Foam. I also want to start getting into more tactical level games. So I have my plate full, and I just have to. It's just a matter of ordering, what's going to come next, and that's basically by the size of the game, the complexity. I'll skim through the rules and kind of determine what's lighter, what's heavier, and then I usually break ties by going with the older game. So. Okay,
that's a cool way to do it. Todd, did you have? See, I'm calling you Todd now. Isn't that nice? What are you playing right now and planning to play next?
I'm glad we're on a first name basis, Kev.
I know, yeah, really.
Okay, so right now I'm playing the Mighty Endeavor 2 on Vassal. We had a little house disaster here. I don't know if you can see in the background there. We kind of had to go down to stud, so I'm having to use Vassal more, which I'm starting to like, because then I don't have to worry about the game being big and set up, especially like the Mighty Endeavor. That's big, relatively speaking. I'm also going through Advanced Tobruk right now, which has been kind of fun to learn. As far as what that's what I'm playing now. Do we want to talk about what we're looking forward to, or do you want to wait and get all the other?
Yeah, go for it.
So I do have Yom Kippur waiting for me, SCS. I think that should be fun. I'm really getting into SCS because it's nice and simple for my little brain. But I've also been slowly buying ASL stuff, and I know that I know AJ's excited about that. But kind of just looking for stuff like finding old modules and stuff that are out of print without paying $200 for them.
Right.
So that's been kind of fun buying some of that stuff. And I got to tell you, I'm itching on this whole. It's not Day of Days. What's the new Grand Tactical Series game by Adam? The D-Day one. The greatest day, yeah. I'm excited about it because I really like watching Ty Snowfur's videos, and Ty's a real great proponent of that game, and I'm excited about it, but I can't decide if I want to spend $200 on a game.
Right.
That I may not get to the table. I may play it on Vassal, but I wouldn't get it to the table, and I like to play Vassal games unless I own it, which is another question. But that's my short answer.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Okay. Hit me up on email when you start Yom Kippur. I've got some articles from from Operations magazine that have some rules clarifications and mods for the game that help balance out a couple of bits and pieces, so that might be worthwhile for you. Christine, what are you? You're back to gaming? Let's have some truth here. What the hell's going on? If you're not going to be playing any war games, you're not getting on any more of these podcasts, right? So,
oh yeah, I know. Yeah, horrible me. What am I playing at the moment? At the moment, I'm GMing in my group, so basically it's Trail of Cthulhu there. I'm also working on a degree in mathematics at the Open University, which is kind of taking up a lot of my time when I'm not working. But I've got a game set up. It's called Operation Seelöwe, which is the what would have happened if Hitler had invaded Britain.
Mm.
It's an old one. It's from 1974, I think.
Yeah, I don't know that game.
It's I think it's SPI actually.
Did you say? So what was the title again?
Well, in German it's pronounced Operation Seelöwe. So I'm just going to type it in the chat. It's been around for one.
Oh, Seelow. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I've got that game. That's a cool game. Yeah.
Exactly, Sea Lion. That's the English translation. So that's upstairs, set up and ready to go. I've played the first turn, and I just basically, the English didn't stand a chance. I just invaded them from across the channel. What can I say? I have to reset it because that was way too easy. I must have made a mistake there.
Right.
And I also have finally managed to get, you remember how we had this issue that I could never get my hands on the Anzac expansion for Lock and Load?
Yes.
Because it wasn't being sold in Europe for some reason. It was absolutely impossible to get it here. So I found somebody who sold me their new copy. So this is the one thing that I'm going to do, an unboxing and a backstory as to why this title is so important for me on Tuesday. So watch that.
I'll be looking forward to it. Awesome. Yeah, that's a great module. I love that module. Yeah.
I can't wait.
Very cool. Gunnar.
Yeah, I'm in between plays. Is that what you call it, I guess? Yeah. Just finished this Unconditional Surrender Case Blue, which was, fun, but long.
Yeah.
So now...
How many times did you play it?
Only once.
Only once? Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and with regards to mistakes, if I hit upload, there's a mistake, I don't take it off. I annotate the videos.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Did we miss you? I'm sorry if we missed you.
Oh, no, that's fine. No problem. I get to talk a lot. No problem. But now it's this SCS thing that is coming up, I think.
That's a fun game.
Yeah, it's only like 6 pages of rules. So it's fantastic.
Right.
Well, in addition to the SES series rules, of course, but still. So that one, I'm thinking I'm going to do a playthrough of that for sure. And if I can find out the stupid rules, it's good.
Right.
Yeah. And what I think I'm most hyped, this Conflict of Heroes solo expansion is hopefully, I think, coming out again. Which could lead to another topic. Which games, which expansions do you own that you don't have your main game yet? Which will be the Conflict of Heroes solo expansion, which I pre-ordered, but I don't have the base game. Well, and this John Butterfield game, Enemy Action Ardennes, looks really interesting. But there's a price issue there, I think, and component issue, and 3 games in 1 issue. I read. So it would be also interesting to hear other people's views on what is the best Ardennes game, because that's I'm curious. Really interesting.
You'll have lots of opinions there. I can already see people slathering and make comments on that. I will say one thing about
Ardennes 44.
Yeah, I knew Tom would say that. Yeah.
Oh, that's a reprint now, right?
Yep, and that's I haven't played it, but it's a very good game according to everybody. Panzers in the Ardennes is a good game, but kind of a grindy thing. So I will probably scratch that. Bitter Woods is supposed to be really good, and I've played that once or twice. I enjoyed that. The Bastogne game you have there is really cool, but a lot of people don't like it because it's taking SCS down to the platoon level and a full day scale. But if you let that go, it's a fun game because it does rely on you not making silly mistakes with this rapid transit movement that you can make. So that's a fun game. I've played it 3 times. I've enjoyed it. What else is out there, guys? There's a bunch of Bulge games. I only own 2 or 3, so they're probably the primary ones that I could.
It never snows.
Sorry, which one?
It never snows.
No, that's Market Garden. That's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm not a big fan of It Never Snows. But,
you would think with snows in the title, it's Bulge, but it's not. And yes, Kevin doesn't like that, so don't even bring that up again.
Yeah. No, it's a quote from a book. There's a book called It Never Snows in September. So, and in fact, I think it's the title of the book. Joe. So thank you, Gunnar. Joe, what are you? Well, I think you told us what you're playing right now. What are you looking forward to next?
I'm going to take the much coveted Nimitz for a spin. That's actually I'm going to play the extended example of play. And after that, I'm going to have a go to one of the Napoleonic 20 series, the España 20, the Battle of Bailén. And after that, I'm planning of tackling a game on the Battle of Stalingrad. And I know there's a few I can choose from. I know that you have that monster game called Streets of Stalingrad. You showed it once.
Right.
I haven't had the heart to punch that thing.
Mine's punched. I haven't had the heart to break it out.
Yeah. But I'm thinking probably doing maybe Turning Point Stalingrad is one of my all-time favorite games, and I think there's not a lot of videos out there on the Battle of Stalingrad. There's a lot on D-Day and Ardennes, but Stalingrad being such a pivotal battle, in World War II, there's not a lot of games or videos for the battle for the city, and I think it's about time I do one of those. So that's probably what's coming in the pipeline. Oh, and one more thing. There's an old Avalon Hill game called Anzio, which they made like a remake recently.
Yes.
Now it has the whole Italian peninsula and Sicily, and the map artist is Mark Simonich. It's the same core game with new components, and I just picked it up and I'm looking forward to playing it because there are not many games on the whole Italian campaign. There's a lot on the Western Front, Eastern Front, but you don't see Italian campaign games around. So that's one I'm looking forward to also.
There are some things on Sicily, but not on Anzio, so that's a good point. Tom, now we know you're playing the massive Goss D-Day. Look at that bad boy, right? And
that's Atlantic Wall. So I'm playing that solo. I've got a local guy here that I met this past year, and we have La Vitale Quatre Bras that we're playing face to face, and that's another. I mean, it's Napoleonics, very good system. Again, it's one of those systems though where the rules have had to be rewritten several times, and I'm not sure that the rewritten versions are better than the original. I kind of prefer the original, but that's a really good game. I'm going to be next weekend. I'm going to visit my friend Dave in Fort Worth. We've got a couple of guys coming in from out of state. We did this last year. We just get together for about 3 days at his house and just play war games. The 4 of us, and we're gonna 3 of us are going to be there early on Thursday and night. Friday morning we're going to play Caesar's Alicia, the old Avalon Hill game, a really good 3-player game on the Battle of Alicia. Haven't played that in like 20 years, so it's going to be interesting to relive that. And we'll probably also do a 4-player game of Normandy 44, which we did last year, divide the map up. That's a single map game, Mark Simonich game.
Sure.
Excellent game on the Normandy campaign. and it's easily dividable into 2 on each side. So that's kind of what I have coming up in the near future.
Cool, very cool. I have a few things going on, but I'm kind of really in between games. I've got some Vassal things rolling around. The Third World War I've been playing, which has been interrupted several times for progress, so we're only on turn 2 of that. I've got a play-by-email game that I'm running for the I can't pronounce all this, so we'll just hold it up. But it's the Flight of the Eagle, basically. And there's a scenario in this that is for Waterloo, and so it's play by email. And I've got 15 guys that send me their moves and their orders, and they plot them all on these little maps, and then I pop them into spreadsheet or whatever, and send them the results and all that sort of fun stuff. That's been hilariously entertaining, being able to see what's going on with everything, and see that the time taken to make communications between each other is really causing lots of havoc with folks. So it's hilarious, actually. I'm playing Flat Top. I'm trying to set up unconditional surrender on my little magnet wall with some new prototype magnets. I've got a new game. I haven't even stick it yet. It's a Waterloo 200. It's what's called. It's a short 2-3 hour game. Area movement, kind of out of my wheelhouse a little bit, but and it's a block game as well. I'm kind of play testing a little bit of that game. I think it might be a nice bridge between the Napoleon 20 series and the what do you call it? Command and Colors Napoleonics, somewhere in between those two in terms of complexity. And if the guy, makes the game work the way I think it will work, then it'll be an awesome series to play. And I think that's it. I'm doing some other stuff on email, Air and Armor, World War III stuff, and bits and pieces. And so anyway, that's pretty much it.
Hey Kev, have you heard Dave commenting on the Advance After Combat podcast about the game he's playing, the Eagles game?
Yeah, he said he really liked it and said it was pretty straightforward and simple, and I would probably agree with that. I've only done 1 or 2 turns of it, and I was intending to set it up, but I'm just not sure that I've got my head on to do that, to make the investment to play a bunch of turns of it. I've really not played a lot of war games at all, other than on Vassal in the last little while, kind of since I got back from Seattle. I just really haven't been in the mood of I'm kind of finishing up bits and pieces, I don't know what's going on, but I start reading a rule book and go, oh, this is going to be really cool, next, and get another game out and do the same thing. So I guess I maybe have a little war fatigue, or is there such thing as PTSD for war gamers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I was talking about that game that you're moderating.
I heard him making some comments about the moderation. I thought you were referring to that. There's another. He has a board. The guy Pratsam Editions has a board game as well.
Okay. Yeah, he sounds like he's really enjoying your moderation and his stories of it. He can't say much because he doesn't want to give away anything, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I can't say anything. So, yeah. He's having fun. They're all having fun, I think. So, anyway. So, couple hours of half a dozen people talking about war games. I'm glad everyone had a chance to get together. Sorry about the getting connected thing with the links. I'll work out how to do that properly next time. And I really appreciate everyone chatting. It's been great to hear from everybody.
Kevin, may I say one thing?
Yeah, mate, sure.
Sure. This is the first time I've ever participated in one of those things. So there's a little yellow box that says live. So this is going live through YouTube?
That is a good question. I think it is. It's supposed to be.
Okay. just in case it is, I want to say hello to my good friend Dan Pancaldi. He's a Canadian wargamer / composer who I've met through my YouTube channel, and he does all the music for those videos that I do. He sends it down to me, and we put the music together with photographs of the historical period. So just in case we're going live, I want to say hi to, I call him Il Duce. So
Il Duce. I love it. I love it. That's awesome.
We're fine
That's
over
awesome. And if it's not live, it will be. It's certainly being recorded by YouTube, and it'll be on YouTube at some point.
Okay.
Yeah. So, well, there you have it. Everyone, thank you so much, and I'm glad we all got together. I know that the first time I did this, it was just with a smaller group, and so it's good to have new faces and hear everyone's comments, and we'll look forward to doing this again soon.
Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Thanks very much for putting it
Thanks,
together.
Kev.
Bye.
Right.
Bye,
Cheers,
everyone.
guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Post some vids.
Yeah. Do it. Everyone post later.
Bye.